Obviously, this is my Viper now with about 100,000 miles. I have been in here before. I don't have safety glasses, so I'm gonna use safety squints. Don't be like me. See, this damn thing just goes all the way up. Oh, look at that. There's not a lot of good airflow ability in these cars. But something I noticed, so I just grabbed this real tight and twisted it by hand instead of using the wrench, which is fine and it worked. But then I'm like, where is all this red stuff coming from? Well, I'm bleeding all over it. Did you know we gotta go to the track? I'll put some precision German springy-doos on it. All right, here's my precision German springy-doo. Because it's not about your car being so amazing. It's about your tire being amazing, and then you do something with it with the car. What's up, people? Well, today I'm in the shop because I'm starting a new series, which I'm going to do a track day build on GOOSE, my 1997 blue with white stripes Dodge Viper GTS. Car's got the better part of 100,000 miles on it now. And to be honest, had a lot of great memories, driven on the street a lot, but nowadays I've got cars that I enjoy driving on the street as well, like the RT10 or maybe the Gallardo, or making memories in the old Buick Phaeton with my family and crazy builds. So I thought the best thing I could do with it is make it that fun, just track day car, not gonna race it, but a fun thing to do with people and get out there, and also a great build series for you guys and how it is. Now, you'll also notice the Genius Garage blue with white stripes Dodge Viper 1997 GTS. That one is much nicer than mine with far less miles and a clean title, and it is one that you potentially can win. If you go in the description below, go to the Tap Cat sweepstakes. It is a fundraiser over the next year for Genius Garage, of course, the nonprofit that means a lot to me, where we help young engineers launch their careers using motorsports and airplanes and building, etc. So you potentially will win a Dodge Viper just like mine. So go down below, seriously. That's an important thing for Genius Garage. But there is my Dodge Viper. Looking good, still runs great, had a lot of memories with it. But today, it's time to start working on it. First of all, let's start with the most important things on a racetrack, and those are the tires. And then we're also going to move to suspension today, and I'm going to show you some of the parts I got. So let's look and see what are going to be my track tires. Boom! Look at these Hoosiers. Yep, big slicks. I got them in the R7 compound. They're the DOT size tires you can get from me. You also get them in the A7 compound, which is more like autocross, a little softer. Both can work fine for road racing. And these are rather large. They're 295 30 18s in the front, and in the rear is 345 30 19s, which fit the new Forge Star wheels that I have for the car. And these wheels on the car are the same size as the last generation Dodge Viper. The bolt patterns do fit, and the reason I upgraded, I shouldn't say necessarily upgraded, but the reason I went with much larger diameter wheels is because modern tires are more readily available for less money in this size, whereas the original ones, a little more expensive, so you're locked into running the Michelins, but there's nothing wrong with it, they're really great. But for me on the track, I wanna run these Hoosiers because those are gonna be the best tires, so it's gonna be a perfect match. And the other thing, for future reference, which we're going to go over, it does give the opportunity of bigger brakes. But let's talk about the other things happening. So one thing we're going to do right now, we're going to get this thing up in the air. I'm going to yank the wheels and tires, throw them in the SUV. Hopefully they fit. They're pretty big. And we're going to take these off to get them changed. I do not have tire changing equipment here because look around. I have no room. And I don't change tires that often. So it's easier just to take it to some professionals that can do it. So important thing there. The next thing is KWs. I'm gonna go with full coilover suspension. Now this box is a little skunky because unfortunately it was under a window and it leaked a little, sadly. But KW makes just absolutely stellar suspension. Now when I say that, I'm not saying it like, oh, I got sponsored by some sort of dumb Chinese coilover piece of garbage. No, KW, these are made in Germany and these are absolutely top tier shocks. Obviously, they make them for the Viper GTS. I was really happy that it came with this part here because this is for the rear and it goes right over the drive shaft. Some of the shocks and stuff you have to reuse the stock ones. These are one-way adjustable shocks. So not the most crazy in the world, but just really high quality parts and all. So today, I'm going to install the KW shocks on the Viper. Now, the very important thing about coilovers that very few people do is, obviously you can raise and lower it and everybody's excited. They can lower it and make their car look good. You don't necessarily just want to slam your car all the way down because it starts changing the static ride height, geometry and camber curves and things like that. So there is an ideal place for it to be. But the beauty about shocks is it allows you to do it, and it also allows you to put the car on corner scales that are perfectly flat and adjust. Maybe you have too much poundage on one wheel and it's sort of crabbing. So you can get the car as evenly balanced as possible, which matters a lot on the track, and of course adjust it. So I'm really excited about putting these on. I think they're going to be perfect for the track and getting the maximum out of these Hoosier Slick tires. Now, the other thing too is, let's be honest, my car has the Hennessy wing on it. Now, saying wing is really not fair, and saying spoiler is really not fair. Mine has the Hennessy Christmas ornament on the back of the car that makes a half decent table. But there's nothing aerodynamic about the shape of this. Now, truthfully, it looks really, really cool and it's super 90s, and frankly, I like it a lot. But it doesn't do anything, and I'm kind of over it. So I've got this older wing here, carbon fiber one universal, that I think will fit perfect and work. I don't have any mounts for it, so they have to be made. So something I'm gonna do, not today, is probably remove this wing, see how bad the holes are underneath from the previous owner, and consider putting on a proper track wing like you'd see on a GT3 race car or whatnot. Also, you'll notice in the front, it's got the dive planes, which are great, but without just spending loads of money, because I'm cheap, spending loads of money, I can make my own aerodynamics, you know? So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use polycarbonate, we might use some carbon fiber, we're gonna make the splitters, we can do everything we need there. So it's not just about being cheap, it's about being smart. And being smart with builds and understanding what the amount of money and effort you put into a car versus what you get back from it. That's the reason why I've been able to, you know, move up in my so-called automotive collecting career. Because if you just pile all your money into some piece of junk car that's never gonna be worth what you got it in, maybe you had fun, but you're gonna be broke and not go anywhere. So I'm not into that. But Goose, I think, is gonna be reborn as, you know, a little more hot roddy for the street, still street drivable, although not really with the slicks, let's be honest. But I'm looking forward to the track. So let's get the wheels off. Let's start looking at the shocks. I want to get that stuff on today. And then at the end of the day, let's just look the car over real briefly and see what else I'm going to need to do in this series. Here we go. A normal socket with the adapter for the silly wheel nuts. Okay, but we can take a look. Doug, come over here, please, so you can see. All right, you guys, so there is the stock. It's not stock. There's the street tire. That's been well used by yours truly. I was curious to do a one-on-one comparison. Doug, just take a look at this real quick. Okay, so one thing you'll notice is, it's fascinating. Even though this is a 355 and this is a 345, this you would think would be wider, but actually the 345 is slightly wider with the race tires. Look at it from straight down, Doug. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that. If I put it right next to each other, yeah, you basically, even though this race tire is technically 1 centimeter narrower, it ends up being the same. So keep that in mind, that when you guys are doing race tires or even street tires on custom builds or whatnot, you're trying to get it to fit really well with the fender, you have to dive deep into the nether regions of the internet and look up the actual dimensions, and not just conversion dimensions of the numbers on the side of the tire, because they're never quite right. And it also matters of how wide your wheel is, so measured rim width. So there's tread width, there's section width, there's diameter, so keep all that in mind. But I will tell you this, I'm very, very happy with these tires. I think they're gonna be absolutely fantastic. It's just the teeniest, tiniest bit smaller in diameter. That is no big deal at all. So I'm really, really happy with that. So I yanked that off real quick. Let's go ahead and pull a front off. Before we do, Doug, come on over here. I want you to look in the wheel well, show you guys here. Obviously, this is my Viper now with about 100,000 miles. I have been in here before and cleaned it up. Gosh, I don't know, like 50,000 miles ago, I replaced suspension bushings and all. I even had the exhaust off and fixed it up. And if you look in there, Doug, you might be able to see the exhaust kind of looks like hell now. So I'll probably be working on it and whatnot. The other thing this car has currently are stainless steel braided brake lines, which is great, but these calipers in the rear suck. So there's some kits and things that you can do. I'll look into, I'll show you guys next time, but here's the old shocks. I don't like them. I think they're crap, and I'm really looking forward to put the KWs on, but you can see the car's obviously been used because it's dirty. But let's go ahead, come here. You'll see that I'm holding the socket. That's partially because you can pull it off. You don't want that socket flopping all around and beating the crap out of your wheel. One thing that's interesting is the Viper is a little more old school, typical American, where it has studs with nuts. Volkswagens, Ferraris from the 80s, etc., have lug bolts, which is cool but also annoying because studs are helpful when you're putting the wheel on to locate it, so it's not just flopping around. And two, if you screw up a lug nut or the lug nut gets busted up, it's not as big a thing. Or if the threads of the lug nut get hurt, but the stud is good, that's not as big a thing. But if you go hurting the threads of whatever it is that it bolts into, it's worse because you can replace studs, but like on the Ferrari Volkswagen, you might, if you strip out the female threads, you're more screwed. But you can see what's going on here. It's similarly as dirty. Let's go over here real quick and check this front tire with the new Hoosier. Here's the front. Now these are both the same size. They're both 295 30 18s. For all intents and purposes, exact same diameter. I'm curious when I hold it up next to each other. Now, obviously this tire is not yet mounted. It may get a little wider, it may get a little narrower in the way when it is. Oh man, that's perfect. You can tell, it does appear that the Hoosier sort of beats it a little bit on the edges, but obviously it's race tires, a little different. But I'm super happy with that. I think that's gonna fit great. So what we're gonna do here in a second, I'm gonna take these over to the shop, get them mounted. I'm also gonna have mounted the remaining tires and wheels for the Indy Roadster project that you guys may have seen. I actually brought it back from Legacy Autosport. Those guys are now building Silver Crown cars, so that project sadly kind of ended up on a shelf, literally. So I brought it home and I figured I'd just work on it as I can. So there's where we're at. Before we go to lunch and get the tires changed and then come back and dive into the shocks, let's pop the hood. I want to show you guys something that relates to the wheel well. So, like I said, this is gonna be my track day car, not a race car. I still like the car. I just want something that's a little more mild. You know, I can give like my wife a ride or friends a ride and just have fun with friends that go to track days where it's not too serious. But one thing you'll notice, come over here, Doug. There are working louvers on the hood here. Now, and if you look here on the stock one, you're like, hey, that's really cool. That'll let hot air and stuff out. Yeah, but that's not really what louvers over a wheel well are for. It's actually more to relieve pressure for aerodynamics. So Doug, stand here if you would. Let's look at the stock car. As the car is moving through the airstream, and the airstream, by relative to the car moving, is coming at the car, there's a certain amount going underneath the car. There's a certain amount going through the radiator and tumbling in the engine and coming out these vents and underneath the car, and it's a big mess. But what are these for? Well, you would think it's to extract air, but the biggest thing is when that airstream is hitting this tire, it has to go around or over it. And a fair amount of that air will come up through the wheel well and hit your wheel well. Well, vents like this on the top of race cars is to relieve the pressure, the high pressure hitting the tire and reduce lift because that creates lift. The yellow Corvette of Genius Garage has those and so does the Viper. But if you look here at the stock Viper, the wheel well here for the street completely blocks the airflow to decrease lift from going out here. So one thing I'm likely to do is to modify the wheel wells for the aerodynamic flow of air to reduce lift. And also you'll notice, look at the engine bay quick, Doug. You can see that it's pretty tight, okay? And it's got a radiator vertically up in here and it has to tumble around and come out. There's not a lot of good airflow ability in these cars. So I'm gonna give a little consideration to that. What we're doing here, because obviously I'm gonna run it on the track and it's all insulated and crap and there's no airflow. You don't really wanna heat soak your stuff more than you have to. So that's something we're gonna get into later, but I just kind of wanted to show you. So right now, I'm very happy with these Hoosier tires and the fact that they fit well. Also, the reason, guys, I like this company and I work with them is, you know, I've had a nice relationship with them for the better part of a decade with Genius Garage. And that was for the yellow Corvette behind me, or behind you, excuse me. And we got our tires from Hoosier, but they were so nice to work with directly because the tire engineers know the exact parameters the tires need to succeed the best. And they can talk with you about whatever car you have to set it up for caster and camber settings and scaling and temperatures and pressures and all the important things. And the same thing comes into play when you get set of the DOT slick Hoosier tires for track or autocross. You can work with them and figure out what parameters you need to give these tires to best succeed, because it's not about your car being so amazing. It's about your tire being amazing, and then you do something with it with the car. If I set this car up or align it badly and give it bad parameters, the car's gonna suck. You're gonna think the tires suck. And neither of those two things are true. So that's the reason I like working with Hoosier, because they're cool and talk to you directly, and you can have that nice relationship to make your stuff fast. So let's go to lunch, get these tires on, and do some shots. Whoops! Oh crap, am I gonna carry crap? Here we go. See, because it's not about your car being so amazing, it's about your tire being amazing, and then you do something with it with the car. Okay guys, come here, I want to show you the shocks. So, got the wheels and tires over at the tire place getting changed out. So, like I said, I really love KW suspension. They're German, super high quality. So, here's the front shock for the Viper. It's adjustable up here at the top. They give you a really nice kit in a nice little box here that seals up. So, you've got your wrench here to, of course, adjust your spring perch, how high that is and how much preload, which I'm going to need to illustrate in a moment. Also have some nifty little stickers, which makes your car go faster. Here's another adjustment for, this is not just an adjustment, but come on in here and look carefully, Doug. So the spring perch has a lock set screw right here. So this little guy here you can stick in here and then tighten up your set screw. And also this doubles on some different shocks as your ability to adjust your rebound, positive, negative. But on these particular shocks, the way you adjust the dampening, I'll show you here. See this little hole here at the top? You put this thing in here, and then every time you turn it one way or another, such as like that, that would be one click, one turn. So you just have to stick this little pokey guy in there. Now, something else I want to point out, and as you guys will notice, here's the rear shock for the Viper. It's got this wishbone thing because the actual drive shaft goes through. That's how that has to work. So, when you get really, really serious about uber high-end race cars, Indy cars, or whatever, you'll put it on perfectly balanced and flat plane scales so that you get your ride height effectively where it needs to be and dialed in, and if you have any preload on your springs and all that jazz. But you can adjust this slightly to increase or decrease pressure on each wheel to get it balanced real nice. However, with people building street cars or basic track car stuff, you don't necessarily get that involved. And frankly, I don't feel like getting that involved either. Now, what you'll also notice, and Doug, if you step back here and look at the Gallardo. So my Gallardo, recently I got it all done, I put KW shocks on edge, which are two-way adjustable. They're really, really nice. And I was frustrated because I like to get things done quickly and move on to the next project. And the trouble is when you get suspension like this, you know, it comes to you put together, but as I looked at the spring perches, they're not all exactly perfect. They're just kind of put together. But KW is really cool. They give you the instructions in both German and English. And what you'll notice is here. So turn a few pages in. And obviously it's for the Dodge Viper GTS and the RT10 of these year ranges here. So that's in fact correct. But what they do is this here gives you in both German and English. So front axle and rear axle gives you a maximum and minimum dimension. So for the front axle, the dimensions are 145 millimeters to 165 millimeters. Now, admittedly, I wish they put this in inches as well, because we won the Second World War. Stop using your Dewey Decimal Point System stuff. I don't have anything in here that's metric, which sucks. But, come here, I'll show you what I mean. So, it's really helpful, and millimeters in the metric system is in fact better, but I think it's funny to say that. So, if you'll notice, how you measure that is, you go from the spring perch to the center line of the lower mounting bolt. So for instance, on those front measurements I mentioned to you, the minimum and the maximum, these are already engineered perfectly to go with the stock basic of the car, with its weight and with its geometries and mounting points and everything like that. So you measure it from this point here where the spring touches the perch, that plane here at the top, not the middle, not the other side, at the top where the spring touches it, and to the center line or center point of the lower mounting bolt. So that's how you get your measurement here, and I can adjust this before we put them on the car. Now on the rear, same thing. The difference is obviously it's a longer measurement because you go from here where the spring connects to the top surface plane of the spring perch to the center point here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them on relating to just that. Now, if you back up over there again, Doug, to look at the Gallardo, when I put this car together in that, I'm pretty sure I kind of set it right in the middle of the range, okay? So, if the Viper ends up being similar to the way the Gallardo was with the KW shocks, and I have a feeling it probably is kind of similar mindset, this is sort of right in the middle, maybe a hair on the low side. And so here it is here as well. And my gut feeling is telling me I should probably do about the same thing on the Viper for a couple reasons. And come on over here, Doug, I'll show you what I mean, the reason why I'm thinking that. The Viper, this is a composite hood, and if you look up underneath here, Doug, you'll notice that it's very thick, okay? So it's not like a normal steel wheel well where it's like this, okay? So it overhangs a lot, okay? And then on the rear, it's similar. So the wheel well is up in here, but if you look at the edge, you got an inch wide lip right here, okay? And so the tires that I have, the race tires, are at the extreme angle of width, and that may be a problem rubbing. So, a couple of things here. I may find out that for track and getting it lower and, you know, rocketing over apex curves and stuff, I'm gonna have to trim this out and make it smaller. It may be that way. So it's kind of one of those tricky things figuring out when you're taking a car from the street and making it for the track. The Dodge Viper was really, and I know this sounds stupid because every idiot in the world says this, but the Dodge Viper was really built like an actual race car, a hand-built race car, and made into a low production street car, which there's so much about this that'll be great for turning it into a track car easily, but there's aspects like this hood that was made to be strong if you look on the inside for the street. But if it were a race car, it would be a much thinner skin of fiberglass or carbon fiber. So things like this that make this strong for street use, that'd be good for me over 100,000 miles, will potentially get in the way. So, gosh, it's a little tricky to decide where to put it. I'm probably just gonna split the difference, adjust those things, and get them on. So if you look again here real quick, guys, the one thing I like about the Dodge Viper, as opposed to other things that maybe have McPherson shocks or harder to get to things, the top is held on by a bolt that is readily accessible. I just have to hold it with wrenches, take the nut off, and tap the bolt out, and it's loose at the top. At the bottom, it's exactly the same thing. There's one bolt that goes through it. Even at the rear, if you come over here, if you remember and you look in here, it might be hard to see. Doug, go ahead and stick that in there and see if you can see this. The wishbone of the shock goes around the drive shaft, but in fact, it uses a very long bolt down here to come out. And at the top, it should be relatively easy too. So what I'm gonna do now, guys, is I'm gonna go ahead and get the wrenches I need. I'm gonna set the shocks and start putting them on. And then hopefully show you guys that. And then I'm gonna go get the tires and wheels and check it out. Check out fitment. Gosh, I'm really curious to go ahead and put the wheels on today and then drop the thing on the ground and see where it sits, which might be cool for the sake of video, but for the series, I hope you guys come back. I might not do that because it's frankly a waste of time, because the car's already up in the air where I could work on it and get to it real well. And it's gonna be a few months before the car's on the ground anyway. So we'll see. But I'll probably take the tires and wheels, look at it, maybe bolt them on, kind of look at it, and go from there. And then at the end of this video, and then probably not this video, but next video, we're gonna review the whole car and make a game plan on what to do. Okay, come here, roller coaster. Okay, I wanna show you guys something. So here's how I'm measuring. I can eyeball this pretty darn good with a metric ruler. I got this design ruler. So I got it at 155, which is right in the middle. The minimum was 145, the max was 165, so I'm gonna do the middle. But something I noticed, so I just grabbed this real tight and twisted it by hand instead of using the wrench, which is fine and it worked. But then I'm like, where is all this red stuff coming from? Well, I'm bleeding all over it. Because just as a note, these are really nice and precisely done, but this last thread is sharp. So I sliced my finger holding on to it real tight. Certainly nothing wrong with the shock. It's just, it's so darn nice that pay attention to that sort of thing a little bit. Okay guys, so I already threw the back ones on, partially because I wanted to do it like, I just want to work on a car, not show everything, otherwise it'll take 3 days. So these shocks are really easy. It's fortunate on the Viper, they're easy to get to. It's literally just a big ass bolt and nut at the top and bottom. And if you jack up your car and get to it, you can literally remove it without having to bust loose A-arms and everything else, unlike when I did the Ferrari Mondial the other day. So that makes me quite happy. Now, a couple of things. One, these were the old shocks I got. They were pretty cheap, the coilovers. You can see here that at the right ride height, the spring is loose when it's at full droop. Doesn't really matter that much, but if you were gonna fly through the air at the Nürburgring, it could be a problem. Also, there's a lot of oil on this shock, leading me to believe the shock is totally blown out now, which makes a lot of sense because in the rear with these other cheaper coilovers, I would get wheel hop under, the wheel hop was under hard acceleration and wheel spin. So these shocks were truly garbage. So that's the reason why it does make sense to spend more money on shocks. They're super important. It doesn't matter how great the rest of your car is, if the shocks are garbage, it's gonna suck. It's like having garbage tires. That's why we're starting here. So that stuff's off. I'm not gonna go psychotic trying to clean everything up and restore because it's gonna be a track car, it's gonna be clean. We're gonna do the brakes later, so it'll all get cleaned up, but I'm literally just working on my car, putting stuff together. So I already set the dampening to what they suggested, 9 clicks from open. It's 0 to 16 clicks. I actually went just 1 click on the harder side on 8 clicks. We'll start there. And I adjusted everything to the middle of the ride height. So if you want to come in here a little more carefully and look, I'm going to place this down through the top of the A-arm, kind of get it down here. Now the other thing I'm going to do, I kind of forgot about. Now this is a little over pedantic, especially with the car. It's probably not going to see much water. I'm shooting this penetrating grease, which kind of goes in sort of liquidy and like a thick oil, and then turns to grease. I'm kind of just spraying this in here. Honestly, just to get rid of corrosion on these bolts and stuff being old. It's just me being a little overkill, and yeah, it'll attract some dirt, but let's be honest, the whole darn thing's dirty anyway, so I don't care. Okay, you gonna fit in there? It's a little snug. Now, one thing, these old shocks, I think the width on the old shocks was a little tighter than what the new shocks are. My feeling is the KWs were actually precisely made, and then when I put these cheap things on, it squeezed the mounts together. So now I can't easily slide that into the mount. So I'm going to use this here hammer, my brass hammer, and give it a little gentle persuasion. Come on, you son of a bitch. Right there. Don't you know we got to go to the track? I'll put the precision German springy-doos on it. All right, here's my precision German springy-doo. Also, when you put it on, don't forget you have to have the dampener adjustment to where you can see it. You put it on like that, you're not going to be able to adjust it again. Which now freaks me out. I want to go check the back ones obsessive compulsively, because I don't remember if I did that or not. I assume I did that, because why would I be so stupid? But let's be honest, you guys, we have all been that stupid before, especially you all that have made custom hard brake lines. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's see if this bolt will go in. Hey, that's really easy. Don't be that easy. It's going to make people think I know what I'm doing. We got a little interference fit there, so I'm just going to hit it a little harder. Get in there. I'm hitting it with the wood so as not to mar anything. You see my finger gently feel when it's aligned, but I don't want to be careful and then hurt my finger. Now here's a little trick I'm going to show you guys. So this bolt at the top, it sticks through with a number of threads coming past the nut. And when you're trying to align that, it can be really tricky. So I'm going to show you a trick on this. Come on over here, guys. Let's go. I'm going to show them this. I'm going to take this bolt, since it sticks through past the nut a good 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch past where the nut is, I'm actually going to buzz it down so it's conical. And because it's conical, if it's misaligned, when you go to tap this thing in, it'll push it without damaging threads. I don't have safety glasses, so I'm going to use safety squints. Don't be like me. Okay. Ta-da! Now, with this being slightly smaller diameter at the tip, it should align. And then when I go to put this in there and give it a tap, tap, tap-a-roo, it should go right in. Keep in mind, I got rid of the plating on the end of that bolt. So, and there it is. It's right in there, no problem. I'm gonna take the nut. Let's see if it threads right on, no problem. In some ways, if this is done right without hurting that thread, did I screw up that little thread right there? It should go on pretty easily. Okay, so maybe the thread's got a little bit of a booger. Okay, now I know I'm using a silly speed wrench here in this, but to be honest, I didn't have a wrench that's quite big enough. So yeah, I'm actually tightening this down at the bolt side, which is silly. That's backwards of how you'd normally do it. But hey, let's be honest, we don't always have the exact right tool on hand. And I don't have the correct wrench to hold the nut. So judge me, IDGAF, excuse me. Okay, that's in. It doesn't have to be tightened up psychotically, because that's not what happens. You don't want it loose and bouncing around in there though, because that does bad things. So, let's see, where is it? I'm gonna cheat, I'm gonna use this electric impact on the nut, and I'm gonna hold the small side with the wrench here. I'm gonna count the Duggas. Spray just a tiny little bit of this penetrating grease here, mostly keep away any corrosion, and done. That shock is on. So let's take a look at that. You can see that. Look real carefully, and then let's go back here and check out the rear. Awesome. Yeah, so guys, that was quick and dirty getting it on there, but it works. Come on back here, Doug. Okay, good. You can see the dampener. So you guys can see how this one's on. This also gives me the opportunity to double check, make sure I tighten everything. But here's this shock. Now, the rear has this helper, so there's a lot of droop. So I'm thinking when I put this back on the ground, it's gonna come up quite a lot, which it better. But yes, I can get to the dampener adjustment here. And I'm gonna just check real quick, make sure I did it over here. Check my work. All is good. There's the dampener adjustment. So everything is good. So I just have to throw the last one on. And we should be about ready to go pick up those tires and throw them on. Because there's so much droop in the back now in comparison to the old one, I think I am gonna take the time to throw on the racing tires and wheels in a minute, drop it on the ground, see what it looks like and see where we're at. And I figured you guys want to see that too. Here we go. Just threw them on here real quick. Obviously I haven't cleaned up the wheels and we're not ready, but I want to put it down on the ground and just see how it looks. I'm really curious to see, like I said with the Gallardo, when I did the KW suspension, the measurements that the factory had you, give you the kind of tolerances of range were great. So kind of put those in the middle and everything was fine. Now with these, I also did it in the middle. The front shock here just has a straight spring on it, no helper spring for extra extension, and it droops down this much. But what's weird is, if you look at this, the rear shock had a helper spring on it, and it droops down a lot, way more than I've ever seen. There's no situation where, in dynamic, that you'd want it to be that low. In fact, the one thing, honestly no, that's okay. So it does actually spin with it drooping that much. It's not interfering with the U-joints. But, it would not be that low. I guess if I was at Gingerman in Michigan, that track, and really put my foot in it, you catch air going over that one section. So I guess that's cool. Let me put it down, let's see where it sits. Like, you can look down here if you want. So I'm hoping, guys, that this is like one of those annoying YouTuber videos where everything works perfectly. And I'm like, yeah, that was so easy, dude. But seeing it having so much droop, there's a certain skeptic in me that doesn't think it's going to compress that much. Okay. I gotta be careful. Now there will be a hysteresis in the suspension, and also as the suspension goes up and down. Come over there. How much did it collapse, Doug? Oh, it's getting down pretty low. Okay, let's see what happens when I put the front down. It's still too high, but we'll see when I get it down. Just have to sit back. I wonder if I can just jack it off the stands with just the one side. We'll come off that stand. I know it's. Oh, come on, I wanted to cheat. Let me cheat. I guess I'll have to put it back in there. This is going to be really interesting to see if they got the measurements of the shock right from the factory. My guess is right now it's too tall. But the fortunate thing is there's a lot of room to adjust it. The only thing that concerns me a little bit with it being potentially really tall, I want to make sure that there's still travel in the shock, and it's not going to just like ride on the bump stops or something dumb like that. So it's pretty tall. Okay, so that's sort of street height right now. So there's a stock one. You can see on that car, it is a little lower. Okay, so that's not bad. just for the first try, because that's like stock ride height, and I got a lot of room to lower it. I don't know if I want to do that right now just because of time, but if you look at this, like look at the rear guys, I got 3 fingers, okay? I can stick in there vertical. On the front, it's a 4 fingers. Now if we look at a stock car right here, it's almost 4 fingers. So right now it's a little higher than stock ride height. Keep in mind the car is not rolled, so these sticky tires are sticking to the ground and they don't want to come out, so it'll settle maybe 1/4 of an inch or more after. And in the rear, this is stock ride height in the rear. Is good for 4 fingers. So it is lower in the rear. It is about stock in the front. So I just got to get in there and turn the springs down. Before I end this video, I want to look real quick and see if I can tell how much shaft can still be seen before it gets to the bump stop. And put my fingers up here. Where's that dirt spray? Here it is. Huh. Cannot see that. Over here. And of course, I never have any flashlights that work. That's normal. I don't know. I'll tell you what we're gonna do though. I'm gonna jack the rear up and look at it because it kind of looks to me like it's just sitting on the dang bump stops. So first thing I want to do, which is gonna annoy me. Even though it's sitting at stock ride height, like if it's already towards a bump stop, like you're not having an effective use of your suspension, even stock, and I need to lower the thing. So it's kind of like, what's going on? Okay, so right now, it's hard to say, because like, here's the bump stop. I'm gonna push it down. I don't know if you can see that, Doug. Yeah, I got that much. Boy, man, I don't know. This just seems kind of weird. See, this damn thing just goes all the way up. Oh, look at that. There is travel there. So the bump stop didn't go up all the way. There's only like the width of my pinky finger left of suspension travel at that point before it's touching the bump stop. So my concern is this isn't the way I would have built these shocks. The body's kind of too long. I would have built it so like this wouldn't droop down so much, but you'd have more free movement of the shaft up when it's nearly bottom all the way out. I don't know about this. I'll just have to come back to it next time and check it out. It's a little too tall. I gotta lower it more. And I wanna see how thick that bump stop is because it's like an elastomer and it's really thick. So, truth be told, where the tire hits the inside of the fender well, like where it's truly bottomed out all the way, as long as it's not yet colliding with the actual shock body, yet it would touch that first, then you're okay. But hypothetically, if without the bump stop, if it would touch shock body before you get to the wheel well, then it's not configured right. I don't know if that's the case. I just think I'm also an overly paranoid person where everything goes wrong, but it's probably fine. So I just need to come back next time, adjust it, drop it, and see. And also next time what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over this and all the details it needs for track, from aerodynamics to cooling to brakes to the cockpit, safety, seats, all that jazz. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Obviously stay tuned. Please, if you wanna win a Dodge Viper, this one's getting given away next year. And the money that you spend to enter it goes directly to the Genius Garage nonprofits and help college students actually get hands-on with high-end stuff in aerospace and race car engineering and get jobs. So that's it, guys. Pretty cool all around. Go in the description below. You can find out where to go, and I'll see you next time. One of the biggest challenges of the collector car and motorcycle world is simply enclosed shipping. I found a company called Diamond 7. They transported my prized 1931 Buick Phaeton, and most recently, my MV Agusta motorcycle I always wanted. They take incredible detailed pictures of your vehicle before it leaves, so you know exactly, and gives the comfort that they care. But more than that, I get real-time GPS tracking of the actual truck that my vehicle's on. Guys, Diamond 7. Go down in the description below, find the contact. You can try somebody else, but trust me, after 20 years, Diamond 7's the one to do.